can do the mantra.
Okay. Recording in progress.
Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Adana Raghunatam Vita Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurasaharinda Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for joining in. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept the humble obeisances on behalf of everybody in this group who have joined.
Please accept mine. Glories to Prabhupada.
So we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on to 1 chapter 15. The chapter 15 is the Pandavas retire timely. And today we are on text 49. So would you like to read the text, or would you like us to read the text, translation, and perfect?
No, that's fine. Thank you. I'll read the text and the Viduro Parija Parit Yaja Pabase Dehamatmanaha Krishna Veshana Chikta Prithivi Swakshayam Yayo. Translation. Vidura, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhas. Because he was absorbed in thought of Krishna, he was received by the denizens of Pitriloka planet, where he returned to his original post. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The difference between the Pandavas and Vidura is that Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord, the personality of Godhead, whereas Vidura is one of the administrative demigods in charge of the Pitriloka planet and is known as Yamaraj. Men are afraid of Yamaraj because it is he only who awards punishment to the miscreants of the material world. But those who are devotees of the Lord have nothing to fear from him. To the devotees, he is a cordial friend, but to the non-devotees, he is fear personified. As we have already discussed, it is understood that Yamaraj was cursed by Manduka Muni to be degraded as a Sudra, and therefore Vidura was an incarnation of Yamaraj. As an eternal servitor of the Lord, he displayed his devotional activities very ardently, and lived a life of a pious man. So much so that a materialistic man like Dhritarashtra also got salvation by his instruction. So by his pious activities in the devotional service of the Lord, he was able to always remember the lotus feet of the Lord. And thus he became washed of all contamination of Sudra-born life. At the end, he was again received by the denizens of Pitralok and posted in his original position. The demigods are also associates of the Lord without personal touch, whereas the direct associates of the Lord are in constant personal touch with him. The Lord and his personal associates incarnate in many universes without cessation. The Lord remembers them all, whereas the associates forget due to their being very minute parts and parcels of the Lord. They are apt to forget such incidents due to being infinitesimal. This is corroborated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 5. Excuse me a second. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's a very interesting comparison here. I just noticed it now. As Prabhupada is saying, Vidura or Yamaraj, he's an eternal servitor of the Lord. And he displayed his devotional activities very ardently and lived the life of a pious man. The demigods are also associates of the Lord. Of course, Vidura is one of the Mahajans. Different slightly from the demigods. It's all of this chapter, in fact, is a little bit technical. It's also not technical. It depends on whichever way you look at it and how deep you want to go. Just like the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, it's described that the mango is Shukadeva Goswami. He was just repeating what he heard, and Sukha, parrot. So the mango, the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, the more it is repeated, the sweeter it becomes. So there's the unripened mangoes. The analogy is given by Srila Prabhupada. The unripened mango is also is very tasty and can be used in so many ways. But the ripened mango, it just has that much more ruchi, that's much more taste than the unripened. So Prabhupada is saying here, the demigods are also associates of the Lord without personal touch. This is a really important point. Without personal touch. Whereas the direct associates of the Lord are in constant personal touch with him. So Vidura, he had both worlds. He was a demigod, Yamaraj, cursed by Mundaka Muni, because we'll get into it later on in the class. Because of that curse, he had to take birth as a Sudra. And it's interesting that Prabhupada is saying where, oh yes, so he became washed of all contamination of a Sudra-born life. That's really interesting, this point. Washed of all contamination of a Sudra-born life. And what does Lord Chaitanya say about this age of Kali? It's very interesting the way it's all connected, of course. Kalo Sudra Sambhava. So we're all born as Sudras in this Kali Yuga, whether we're born into a Brahmin family or a Sudra family or Kshatriya or Vaishya, whatever the case may be. We're all contaminated by the Sudra-born life simply because of being born in this age. But yet, we have this direct personal association with the Lord. I mean, can we imagine? More than the demigods. That is why Srila Prabhupada said this many times. He put it in his purports. He also enunciated this in class many times. And we kind of gloss over it. Oh, yes. Yeah, we're very grateful. We're Prabhupada's mercy and so on and so forth. And we say these words. But, when we go deeper and deeper and we peel off the layers I don't want to use this gross analogy, but it's like an onion. You know, you just peel off the layers, there's just another layer underneath. But you know, devotional service is like that. We just peel off one layer after another after another. But unlike the onion, we reach an actual goal. And Prabhupada says that the demigods, the devatas, are queuing up to take birth on this planet so as they can become associates of the devotees in this movement. So this is Yamaraja's position. You know, he took birth as a Sudra. He was born from the Devi Dasi, who was given in tribute to Dhritarashtra when he married Gandhari. Of course, in those days, the king, the head of state, the big leaders, when they would marry a very noble woman, then of course the father-in-law, he would give so much in tribute, in dowry. And a part of that dowry was, you know, so many thousands of elephants and horses and cows laden with gold and so on and so forth. And I heard a lecture from Prabhupada the other day. He was saying, can you imagine? This was the situation with these kings. And Prabhupada said, and even I observed it in my own time traveling around India. Prabhupada was a very successful businessman and a very astute businessman up to a point before he took sannyas. And he traveled all over India on behalf of his business. And then, of course, Krishna arranged that everything was just not worth it anymore. So he left and he took sannyas. Krishna arranged the whole thing. But he said, even in my time, I have traveled in the houses of the aristocracy in India, the descendants of kings from old times and so on and so forth, in Rajasthan and so many in Gujarat and so many places like that. And there were elephants in the compounds of these great, great personalities. He said, can you imagine even today, even a rich man, if you give a rich man a gift, a present of an elephant, well, what will he won't be able to maintain it. Or even a horse, you give him a gift of a horse. But in those days, the kings, the royalty, the kshatriyas, they were maintaining thousands of elephants, thousands. I mean, most of you are familiar with Kenya, and you see there are hundreds, thousands of elephants roaming around in the savannah, in the jungle, in the Masai Mara, and so many places like that. Zambia and Zimbabwe and Ethiopia, thousands, tens of thousands of elephants, all being maintained by the Lord. But in those days, it was completely different, completely different. And even Prabhupada says, even 40, 50 years ago, Prabhupada speaking from his time when he started a movement in New York, even 40, 50 years ago, I saw this degree of wealth in India, a conquered nation. In his childhood, he saw these things. So in Kalo Sudra Sambhava, we're just born in this Sudra. So we're all in the position of Yamaraj, of Vidura in this case, born into a Sudra situation. But by the Shakti of Srila Prabhupada, we come through all this. We can have this great opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime. And Prabhupada says, by his pious activities in the devotional service of the Lord, not just pious activities qualified in the devotional service of the Lord, he was always able to remember Shravanam. He was always able to remember the lotus feet of the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaran. And by this, he became washed. So what is washing us of all this contamination? It is the kirtan. It is the japa. We went to the Rath Yatra on Sunday, and the kirtans were just incredible. It was Bank Holiday weekend. So many older devotees who had gone away or just doing their own thing, starting their own little centers and their own little temples. They all came to the Rath Yatra, and it was incredible. One kirtan after another, led by the older devotees to the tunes that Srila Prabhupada had taught us. nothing, just manufactured. Nobody was singing or dancing or chanting for the sake of entertainment. Everybody was in the mood of relishing the power of the holy name. And we just drifted a long route, maybe as long as London, but absolutely wonderful. And everybody was just floating. And then at the end, at the Tor, famous monument in Glastonbury, we all took prasadam in this lovely daisy and buttercup laden field at the base of the Tor, and it was like being in Krishna Loka. It was like incredible. All devotees very happy, stopped all the traffic. All the people came out of the shops in the middle of Glastonbury and out of the restaurants and everything like that, and joined in the kirtan. It was just glorious. And this is a small little village type place. But it shows the power is there when the purity is the force. Books are the basis. Purity is the force. It's definitely a fact. And the more we stick with Prabhupada's method, then the more success we can see. It may be in this day and age, in some circles, Prabhupada is considered, what would you say, a little bit Victorian or a little bit locked in that age. But we can see Prabhupada speaks on the eternality of everything, not only the eternality of the soul, but the eternality of the whole philosophy, the whole disciplic succession. And it's completely and totally unchanging and unchangeable. And as long as we stick with it, Prabhupada speaking, he was cursed by one Muni. Prabhupada gives a lecture on this verse, and I heard it a few days ago while I was cooking. It's a great way to cook when you're listening to a lecture of Prabhupada and you're chopping your potatoes or your carrots or whatever, and you just forget. You completely forget. You just get absorbed, and sometimes even forget that you're even in the kitchen. You're cooking anything. Each planet is separated by what we call yojanas. It's measured in a yojana, which is 8 miles. So how many yojanas one planet is situated from another planet? Everything is described in the 5th canto. Of course, we haven't got to the 5th canto yet. Imagine how much nectar we're getting out of the 1st canto. So then we have all the 10 cantos to go. We have a wonderful future in store for us. Absolutely wonderful. We're going through this shloka by shloka, sometimes 2 shlokas a day, and it's a great opportunity. So Pitraloka, just like the moon planet, Prabhupada is discussing that they're trying to go to the moon planet, and now of course they claim they've conquered the moon, so now they want to go to Mars, blah blah blah. But there are different lokas, Prabhupada says, not by Sputnik, as Prabhupada calls it, by Sputnik, by rocket. In other words, you can't go by force. And Prabhupada gives a very appropriate example. He said, just like when I was coming to your country, to the United States, it took me months and months and months, first of all, to apply for a passport, and then to get a no objection certificate. And then, India, what it's like. You have to go through these hoops and all this rigmarole and all this bureaucracy to get anything done, just to buy a postage stamp in the post office. I've seen it so many times, a queue of 5 million people in the post office. And, Prabhupada had to go through all these hoops. And then that was the Indian bureaucracy. And then he had to go through the American bureaucracy. He said, just to enter your country, I had to go through so many hoops and jump through so many obstacles and so on and so forth. You think you can just go to another planet like that? Like I could come to America because I have a gun and I can force the immigration officer to let me in? Of course. You can't do anything by force. You have to qualify. So the same with these modern day scientists. They think they can just go to Mars or Jupiter or whatever by force in a rocket, and they calculate this. It's all a con. The whole thing is a con. I had to qualify in so many ways by the immigration department. So Prabhupada quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, every lecture he gives, he quotes from Bhagavad Gita extensively. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. This is a really nice verse. A person can go to the planet of the demigods many demigods. Prabhupada quotes some Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, Brahmalok, Prajapati Lok, Siddhalok, so many lok, on and on forever. They're all in the higher planetary system. And we are now situated in Burlok. So we're in the middle. We're not in the higher planetary. We're not in the heavenly regions. We're not in the hellish regions. We're in the middle. This is like the launch pad, if you want to call it that. For we come here, we perform our activities, and then by the nature of our activities, we decide where we're going to go next. And of course, Yamaraj, he's just the agent on behalf of Krishna, supervising to make sure that whatever pious credits we have accumulated, whatever impious credits we have done, then we get the reward according to our activities. It's not that God is cursing anybody to go to hell, as it is described in some of the other religions. That is not the case at all. God is not cursing anybody. Krishna is running 1,000,000 miles a second towards us to bring us back to Godhead, but we're going in the opposite direction because of our own desires. So when we dovetail our desires in with Krishna, with Mahaprabhu, with Lord Nityananda, that's when everything is in place. So then the lower planetary systems, people are living there in inferior bodies to us. In the higher planetary systems, they're living in superior bodies to us, and we are in the middle. In the middle means we have some hellish situations on this planet, as we all know, and we have some heavenly situations on this planet, as we all know, and we've all experienced. So it depends on the degree of our pious or impious activities. We get some kind of but the objective is to create a situation in such a way that we reach the stage where we say, okay, enough is enough. Don't want to go through the cycle over and over and over again forever. As if you develop sattva gun, the quality of goodness, then according to our degree of goodness, we get promoted to the higher planets. If we're in the mode of passion, of course, then we stay in the kind of middle system. And then if we're in the mode of ignorance, then of course we know what happens there. There's no need to repeat it. So, but even forget about the human form on the lower planets. Then if we're really like in this abominable consciousness, and it all stems from consciousness, thinking, feeling, willing. So it first comes from the thought. Everything comes from the thought. And it's from the thought that it's manifested in the gross. But it all starts off on the subtle. Like the creation of the universe, we all know from reading Bhagavatam, it was first Shabda Brahma. There was the sound vibration. And from the sound vibration, imagine this whole material cosmic manifestation came from sound. It's like it's inconceivable, but this is a fact. Everything, it just came from sound. And then so that then that manifests in the thought. And from there, the gross comes. But we can also go into the animal kingdom: beasts, birds, trees, plants, aquatics, whatever. It's based on my desire, my consciousness, that is fulfilled by the material energy according to what I want. That's the ironic thing about it. If I'm living in a hellish situation, then that is based on previous activities and previous existence. It doesn't mean that we turn our backs on people or ignore people, have no empathy of people who are suffering. Of course we do. But how do we help people to get out of this suffering condition? By helping not only them, but us, ourselves, to understand we're not the body, we're spirit soul. This is no permanent situation for us to be in. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and Prabhupada quoted this extensively many, many times. The material world is no fit place for a gentleman. And that's a fact. And we see the way Srila Prabhupada behaved. Even if we haven't met him, We have read about it in the Leelamrita. We see video clips of Srila Prabhupada. We see Srila Prabhupada giving lectures. Prabhupada behaved like the perfect gentleman. He was always the perfect gentleman. Even in anger, Prabhupada was behaved perfectly like a gentleman. And because the culture was there, the culture of Krishna consciousness. Of course, these days, the word culture, coming from the word cult, is given a bad name. But it's to do with culture, just like the word savage. What it's given an abominable name. The word we sing savage, this kind of Tarzan kind of image of savage. But the word savage comes from the French word sauvage, somebody who lives peacefully as a mendicant in the jungle, in the forest, sauvage. So I mean, the way we've corrupted language, we've corrupted everything. It's Kali Yuga. It's Kali Yuga. So what we've come to expect, that's the way it is. So, but we ourselves as devotees, in our little circle of devotees, whoever we associate with, we should never allow ourselves to become influenced by this outside. So we know we're in it, we're a part of it, we're in the stool, we're in the mess of this material world. We were born into it. So we accept what we've got, and we deal with it, and we live, and we go out, and we work, and we go to school, or whatever the case may be, and do our jobs. But we know that, like the swan, we're the lotus flower in the lake. The stem is in the water, but the lotus is way above. So we're in it, we're part of it, but we're not in another way. So we have to change this body. There's no other way. From childhood to babyhood, to boyhood, to youthhood, this is a practical example. We've all done it. You're not the same body as we had the body of the womb and the mother, are we? That's obvious. I mean, that doesn't need a great explanation. That doesn't need a brain. That body's gone. It's way gone. Now, daily changing, daily, but it's imperceptible. Just like Prabhupada gives the example, a child is born sitting on the lap of the mother, and you might be the neighbor of that child or whatever, and you see the child has been born, and you go and congratulate the mother and the parents and so on, and maybe bring some gift, and then you go away for a few years and you come back. I say, oh, who is this? And it's the same child, but the change is enormous. Oh, surely this is not the same child. So the transmigration of the soul is not only happening from one body to the next, it's happening within this lifetime. So just like the child is changing, so after a few years when you come back, and it's a completely different person. So what does that change? But yet, no, this is Johnny. This is my son. This is my daughter. The same person you saw years ago when they were just a small child. It's the same person. Oh. So by the laws of nature, everything is going on imperceptible. Krishna says, time I am, the destroyer of all these worlds. So there's a famous line from a Bob Dylan song, if I may. He who is not busy being born is busy dying. From the moment we're born, death is approaching. And there's a constant reminder of that, particularly when you reach the age that I'm at. The body is not functioning in the same way. I can't do the same things I did when I was a youth. I can't expect to. Nor should I be bewildered by it. That's the nature of life. But the subtle laws of nature, it's a great science. It's a great science. It's explained in the science of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. But who wants to know? There's no discussion of this science in any university in the world. And yet this is the science. This is the thing. Everything is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. All the sciences are there. Not only philosophy, all the sciences are there within the Srimad Bhagavatam. But they're advanced in knowledge. We're thinking we are advanced in knowledge, claiming advancement in knowledge. But what knowledge have we got? We do not know who we are. And yet we are advanced. Sanatana Goswami, famous case, Sanatana Goswami. He, Prime Minister, He was Prime Minister of the Nawab Hussain Shah, the famous Sanatan Goswami, and the famous Nawab Hussain Shah, who was stopping the Harinam, and Lord Nrsingadev appeared to him in a dream, and was going to rip him apart with his nails, and he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya. He was the first peaceful demonstration, non-violent demonstration, when Lord Chaitanya marched to the palace of the Nawab with tens of thousands of devotees, and there were madungas and cartels, and the sound vibration. The Nawab was afraid to come out. The sound vibration broke the universe, broke the covering of the universe, that sound vibration. Eventually he was persuaded to come out. He had a whole discussion with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is recorded in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Absolutely brilliant section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The whole discussion about what is the highest philosophy. There was a backwards and forwards conversation between the Nawab and Lord Chaitanya. Is your Quran higher? Is the Bhagavatam higher? Is the Bhagavad Gita higher? And the whole thing about the Quran and the Muslim philosophy. And yes, Lord Chaitanya conceded, yes, you have some understanding of God, but your understanding is limited. And Prabhupada said the same thing about Christianity. The understanding is limited. And Prabhupada used to complain all the time, one of your commandments is thou shalt not kill. Yet you're opening slaughterhouses all over the world. How on earth can we have peace? George Bernard Shaw, the famous Irish poet, he wrote the first line of his poem, we are living graves of murdered beasts, slaughtered to satisfy our appetites. We do not war, we want peace, and yet we gorge ourselves upon the dead. How on earth can we have peace? How on earth can we have a Vaikuntha here when we ourselves are creating the hellish condition under which the whole world is living? It's not possible. So Sanatana Goswami, when he approached Lord Chaitanya, his first proposition was, my dear sir, Prabhupada writes about Lord, he also calls him sir, my dear sir, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, some neighboring people, some friends, some neighbors, they call me, I am a very learned scholar. This is Sanatana Goswami. He's the top, he's the pinnacle of our philosophy. In ordinary behavior, they call me a very learned scholar. But I do not know who I am. I'm supposed to be such a scholar. And Prabhupada said, this is submission. This is called submission. Everyone is puffed up. I know everything. Yes. Don't talk to me. I know everything about Bhagavad Gita. I'm born this, I'm born that. So there's no need of going to a guru. Just like Prabhupada said in Nairobi, people complain, they insist, rather, not complain, they insist, oh yeah, God is everywhere. Why I need to go to the temple? This is in Nairobi, Prabhupada said this. Prabhupada put so much energy and Shakti into Kenya, into Africa, Mauritius and South Africa, so many places Prabhupada went, so many times. He put so much energy into Kenya. We really have to be grateful for that. But in Nairobi, Prabhupada said this very verse, this lecture rather, he was saying, yes, everybody is claiming, yeah, God is everywhere. I don't need to go to the church. I don't need to go to the mosque. I don't need to go to the temple. And then Prabhupada says, God is everywhere except in the temple. Is this your claim? So, we always look for excuse. We'll always look for an excuse because it's easier. It's easier to do the wrong thing. It's easier to fall into Maya. It's easier when your alarm goes off in the morning to switch it off and go back to sleep. That's nature. I do it myself. But that's not going to bring you back to Godhead. We're going to remain in ignorance so long we're sleeping. The longer time we're sleeping, the more we will remain in ignorance. That's why I know so many rubbish things which are useless. That's what we have to do. That's what Arjuna did. Now kindly teach me. This is called submission. Shishas teham siddhimam prapanam, Arjuna says. When there was argument between Arjuna and Krishna, then the matter was not solved. What happened? We all know. We've all read. And Arjuna, finally, he submitted. My dear Krishna, previously we were talking as friends. Please, no more friendly talk. I accept you as my spiritual master. Kindly teach me what is my duty. What did Arjuna want to do? We all know. Again, I'm preaching to the converted, I know, but just for the sake of reminding ourselves, Arjuna wanted to go off into the forest and live as a mendicant. Sounds very nice, sounds very plausible, very peaceful, peace brother, and no violence, and all this kind of stuff. And, today, according to the hippies, that's the best way to live. No war, peace, man, peace. But that's not his job. That's not his job. So his job is to fight. So Krishna had to convince him, this is your job. He was saying, oh, my grandfather and Bhishma, my uncle, my spiritual master is on the other side. Dronacharya taught him everything that he knows was taught by Dronacharya without holding back. Dronacharya knew he's going to be fighting us eventually. Because Dronacharya is not called Acharya for nothing, Trikalagyani. He knew past, present, and future. So he knew, but still he didn't hold back. This is Kshatriya. This is something or somebody that's based on principle. And if our lives are based on principle rather than some short-term goal or short-term objective, we never go wrong. If we're fixed in our objective, we can never go wrong. And if that objective, that principle, or that goal is based on Shastra, that's absolutely the best. 100%. So we have to learn, what is the value of life? How is this changing? How are we transmigrating from one body to another? What am I? Am I this body or am I beyond? We have to inquire like that. This is human life. Atato Brahma Jignasa. This inquiry should be made. So in this Kali Yuga, without any knowledge, without any inquiry, without any guru, Tadvidi Pranipratena, without any book, everyone is God. Everyone is God. We're all God in our own little way. And we may not say that. Of course we don't. We're not that gross to claim that, I'm God. Of course, especially as devotees within our circle of friends and devotees, nobody's going to say that. It would just be laughable. But our actions speak a lot louder than our words. So in this Kali, without any knowledge, everyone is God. That is going on. Fool's paradise, Prabhupada says. So this will not help. So this verse, Vidura Yamraj, we discussed. How did that happen? I suppose many of us know this story, but it's very brief. I'll just repeat it. Saintly person was brought before Yamaraj for punishment. And when the saintly person was brought before Yamaraj, that I don't remember I've committed any sin in my life. So the saintly person, Mandaka Muni, he was a little confused. Not that he was puffed up or anything like that. He accepted whatever Yamaraj instructed, and whatever he told Yamaraj, whatever Yamaraj told him, he accepted. But he was just a little confused. Why? I've done everything proper, followed the Vedas, followed the instructions of Gita, everything in my life. I've not harmed a soul, done everything according to the book. Why have I been brought here for judgment? So Yamaraj says, oh, you don't remember? Like that, a little bit caustic in his response. In your childhood, you pierced one ant with a needle, and the ant died. An ant lives for hours. Therefore, you have to be punished. So Prabhupada says, just see, in childhood, this innocent child playing pierced an ant with a needle. And for that, compare that to the things that we have done in our lives. Just compare that, and we're pure devotees. Everything is fine. I'm fine. So and then this ant died. So, and willingly, in childhood, because of ignorance, some sin was committed. Small, small thing, almost insignificant. Still, a soul, it's not the ant that important, it's the soul. The soul, the journey of the transmigration of that soul was interrupted by Mandakamuni. And we have to pay. So at least in our lives, at least if we can try and be conscious of this. I mean, it's not always possible. I make this mistake all the time. But at least in our lives, we should try not to get in people's way. If we can't help somebody, that may be one thing. But at least in our lives, we should try to avoid getting in somebody's way as they progress through their spiritual journey. That we should not do, ever. For that is unforgivable, to try to curtail somebody's spiritual development. We may not be in a position to assist people. That's one thing. We don't have the potency of Prabhupada that we can just start the worldwide movement of the Hare Krishna and distribute hundreds of millions of books all over the world and translate so many literatures. That's not, we cannot compare ourselves to great personalities like that. But at least consciously, maybe inadvertently things might happen. That's forgivable. But consciously, we should make sure that we don't get in the way of somebody's spiritual development. For that, it's very difficult to see how we can avoid being punished. So again, willingly, we're going against the principle of thou shalt not kill. In this case, thou shalt not kill. Opening so many slaughterhouses, giving a nonsense theory that the animal has no soul. And this is going on. Prabhupada is saying this is going on. And we want to have peace. Therefore, Prabhupada said in the Senate House, at the time of Prabhupada, of course, in I think it was the mid-70s when in Los Angeles, or 73 or 74, when he was giving this series of lectures on this actual chapter. Prabhupada said that in the Senate they made the proposition that there should be a prayer in the Senate every day before they begin their discourses. And he was turning to Karandar, who was his leading secretary. Karandar started the BBT. Karandar opened so many temples on the West Coast, San Diego, Los Angeles, so many. Karandar was like a dynamite. Prabhupada was setting up Karandar, practically speaking, almost to take over from him. Karandar was huge, absolutely huge. Prabhupada consulted him on everything. And eventually Karandar just left Prabhupada's association. So, direct association with Prabhupada. Karandar, I think, had 200 letters from Srila Prabhupada. Over 200 letters. Backwards and forwards, instructing him, and long letters, not just my dear Karandar, Hare Krishna, Chant Hari Bol. No, long letters instructing daily, manager, wherever Prabhupada would travel all over the world, he would write to Karandar. His mail will be forwarded to Australia or to London or to Delhi, wherever Prabhupada was. It was always Karandar, my dear Karandar, please accept my blessings, blah, blah, and then boom. So in this conversation with Karandar, he was talking about this. A senator made a proposition that there should be a national day of observance of prayer because of this nature of the state's moral decay. And you'd imagine that a politician is making this proposition in the Senate. You'd imagine that, this is wonderful. Yeah, Prabhupada would be very happy with this. Of course, it is a nice idea, and Prabhupada was happy with it. And Prabhupada said, well, it's good that the managers of the country, they're coming to their senses, they're recognizing that God is supreme and God is paramount. But this sentiment, it will not help, Prabhupada said. It won't help. It's just sentimental, just like we were discussing the last time I gave class on the American coinage and the American dollar bill. It's written, "In God we trust." They have no trust in God. It's just a slogan, none whatsoever. Prabhupada says, we must be serious. Just as sentiment will not help. Sentimental, Prabhupada says. What does it mean? 100% mental. That's all. 100% mental, sentimental. And it's a complete waste of time. Sinful activities, they are forwarded, they're manifested. And Prabhupada says, we are saying no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. These are the principles on which society, as a very basic, to be a basic member of society, these are the basics before we can even consider ourselves to be human. Otherwise, according to the Vedas, and certainly according to Prabhupada's definition, we're just animal if we're not observing these four principles. No gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex. Who is observing? Who? So there's no God, no foolish. God is not so foolish. You go and doing all your nonsense, Prabhupada says. You go and doing all your nonsense and you have one day of prayer, supposedly, that God should be pacified with your day. You can carry on with your nonsense, everything is good. Just like when I was a child, up to my teenage years, we would go to church, Catholic church. And then if you did your nonsense activities, went out and you did some sinful activities, then you go to the church on a Saturday, you confess your sins, you go, bless you, my son, and so on and so forth. And then you go out and go to communion the next day and then carry on with your sins because you've been blessed. They've been washed away. God is like a doormat. So you just wipe your feet in the doormat, and then everything is okay. It doesn't work like that. I mean, I know it sounds heavy, and we all want to hear nice stories, but this is the reality. These are the facts, and this is but all of this, as Sanatan Goswami says, I thought I was a learned person. So we have to wake up from our slumber. We have to wake up from our ignorance. I'm speaking to myself here. I'm not preaching to you. I'm talking to myself to remind myself every time I give class, every time I speak like this, that this is for me. I'm not talking to the devotees on the screen. I'm talking to myself here. We need the constant reminder because we're in Kali Yuga and it's dangerous. Padam padam, yadvi padam, latesham. There's danger at every step. That doesn't mean danger to the body, that we'll suddenly be shot or run over by an elephant, or a plane's going to fall from the sky and drop on our head, or we'll be killed, or we get an injury. This doesn't mean that. Padam padam yadfi padam natesham means we'll be danger at every step, that we will lose our spiritual enlightenment, lose our spiritual awareness. This is the real danger. So it's not possible that we can, God is so foolish we go on doing all our nonsense simple by prayer that we be relieved of all the punishment. So that's why we're talking of Vidura. Vidura was cursed. He punished a great Muni, and he had to suffer. Here's Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. The Lord of Death. He's not immune. Of course, he was then going to participate in the whole pastime and helping the Pandavas. So there was a reason for it. There's so many layers, like the onion we were talking. So many layers of so many stories that we go through. But we in our classes, in our talks, in our discussions, in the books, we discuss one point at a time. But there are so many points, so many facets of this philosophy that we all should take into consideration. It's deep stuff, and it's great stuff, and it's enlightening and enlivening, and it will help us, and it does help us. So the Muni accepted to be punished by Yamaraj, but he also cursed him, because in my innocence I committed some sin, so now I curse you. So he took birth as a Sudra, born by the king. The king was his father, but one of the maidservants was his mother. So he was obviously a lot wiser than Dhritarashtra. He was Dhritarashtra's advisor, and eventually Dhritarashtra leaves home in that section of the Bhagavatam, it's Vidura having them out. You're being kept here like a dog, like a kept dog, being fed at the table of Yudhisthira. And you're imagining that you're still in your royal order, your big king, and your big position being fanned every day because of Yudhisthira's largesse, Yudhisthira's mercy. He's keeping you like this, but this is not the place for you. You have to get your act together. Go out into the forest, forget about all this. And he did. He left in the middle of the night with Gandhari following closely behind. And then so he was Dasiputra, maybe considered a low position, brother, stepbrother, but Maharaj, but he was a saintly person. That's the thing. We can't go by the external. We can't go by what we see. Oh, this person is a street sweeper. This person is this person is that. Not in my position. I'm higher or I'm lower or whatever. We can't go by these designations of these external things. It doesn't work. And the scripture teaches throughout the scripture, the whole scripture, that the one who is humble, the meek shall inherit the earth, Jesus says. So there's many incidents like this, by cursing, by accident. We have to accept a body we don't desire. Just like Bharat Maharaj, another famous example in the Bhagavatam. We haven't come to that yet, but we will, and we all know the story. Bharat Maharaj, great saintly king. Not some small time. The king of the planet, 24 years old. 24 years old. He left the palace, went out, renounced, gone. Now, I've had enough. He was the king of the planet, the entire world. And realized, okay, I don't want to become attached to this position. 24 years old, he left, designated his sons, you take over, gone, out into the forest. Young wife, young children, kingdom of the, left everything for cultivating spiritual advancement. And then what happened? He saw a deer being chased, and in the confusion, the deer jumped across the river and immediately gave birth. The deer was pregnant, gave birth to a small deer, a doe, a deer, a female deer. We all know that one. And he took pity on it, became attached to the deer. And what happened? He took birth as a deer. In seconds, the attachment comes. A great big renunciant could renounce the kingdom, the entire planet, just walk out the door and go and live in the forest. And then, bang, padam yadvi padam natesham. Was there any danger from that deer? No, but this was the big danger. The attachment of becoming attached to the deer. This was his padam yadvi padam natesham. But fortunately, he could remember, even in the body of a deer, such a pious soul, pious personality. Even in the body of a deer, he could remember his previous existence. Wow, 5 to 7. What happened? There's millions of things I haven't touched. And then he was living in near the Munis, the other Munis who were in the forest, and eating the remnants of their food, eating the flowers, the garlands that they had been wearing, eating the remnants from the havan, from the sacrifices that they were making. So then in his next life, he became Bharat. And then he did Monavrat, played dumb, played stupid, like Lord Rishabdev. Lord Rishabdev did the same thing, went out into the forest and just lived. What is it described? It's a long time since I read that. Like he lived like a python, just sitting in one place, not moving. And the whole forest smelled like sandalwood paste where Lord Rishabdev was. And that whole speech he gave to his 100 sons about the goal of life and how they should take care of the kingdom and see everything as temporary. Absolutely brilliant. We've yet to touch all of this. We're on the first canto and we're already, going through so much philosophy. It's absolutely wonderful what you've started. And continue, and don't ever give it up. So this is the science. At the time of death, it says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever we are thinking, whatever the thought is, will be carried to such a body. And then, of course, that example of Bharat Maharaj is there. Death is there. We have to die. There's no way out. You may declare yourself, oh, I'm very independent. I don't care for God. I don't care for this. But nature will not excuse us. We have to ultimately, at some point in time, surrender to nature. Vidura returned to his place eventually, returned to his position after helping so many souls, not only the Pandavas, so many, wonderful prime minister, even his brother Dhritarashtra, who was so corrupt, he could pick on such wonderful personalities like the Pandava and allowed Duryodhana to even try to arrest Krishna. When Krishna came as the peacemaker to the palace to try to negotiate peace between the parties, Duryodhana was so envious. And then Krishna, what did Krishna do? Krishna is so merciful. He gave Duryodhana his army. He gave them the choice. You know the story. He was asleep. Arjuna was there. Duryodhana was there. And when he woke up, he gave Arjuna the choice. Whoever's at my feet, he saw first. So Arjuna says, no, let Duryodhana choose. Duryodhana chose the army. Lakhs and lakhs and lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of soldiers. And what did Arjuna said? I choose you. And even though Krishna said, I will not fight, I will not participate in the fight, I will not physically fight, still Arjuna said, I don't care. If you're on my side, that's all I want. I don't need anything else. And that's all we need. Whether Krishna is going to fight or not fight is irrelevant. All we need to know, Krishna is on our side anyway. All we have to do is turn our head towards him and say, oh yes, there you are, Krishna. Thank you. I see you now. And go for it. And just be yourself. The journey of self-discovery, the science of self-realization. Discover yourself. That's it. There's nothing else needed. It's very, very simple. And then, of course, there's halava. I mean, how can you go wrong in the world of halava? How is it possible to do anything wrong in the world of halava? It's just, tomorrow's near Jal. I shouldn't be speaking of halava. So I was with you in Eldoret this time last year, and it was wonderful. I survived. Imagine surviving 36 hours, whatever it is, without water. But, you know, the benefit is there. This tapasya is always good. It's always good. It's good to try, even. We don't even try, think, oh, it can't be done. No, I have my wife, I have my children, I have my family, this and this and this. Yeah, okay. There's always an excuse. Always. And you know, nature will always provide an excuse not to do this, that, and the other. Oh, I'm tired. I can't jump my rounds now, and it's too late, and I may go for it tomorrow, and so on. There's always something, always. That's why we have to be on a higher plane. We have to be transcendental to all this. These material energy, it's there, it's strong. It's not a joke. To overcome the material energy is serious. Serious. It's a battle. We're all in a little Kurukshetra of our own. But we have Krishna. Krishna is with us. Krishna is on our side. And all we have to do is say, yes, Krishna, thank you. Surrender. Take shelter at his lotus feet. Everything is hunky-dory. So I better stop. It's time up. Is there even time for questions? My apologies for rambling on like the lunatic that I am. Again, forgive me. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for this excellent class. We really enjoyed it, and I know that we have run out of time, but if there are any questions or comments, we can take a few. Are there any questions or comments from the group?
Haribol, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question. You said that you should just surrender to Krishna and leave it to him. He will protect you and save you from anything. So do you, like, as you said, surrender, or do you, like, try on your own to help yourself and protect yourself, or do you just leave it to Krishna completely?
Very good. Nice question. Yeah. That's a question I've asked myself many times. Prabhupada answers this question also on many times. We're Krishna's servant. So being a servant, we engage in service. We do something for Krishna to please him. As the gopis, if you remember when Krishna and Balaram were looking for a little nectar, something to help them in their life, they went to the Brahmins, and the Brahmins, no, we're busy with our havan, we're busy, we're doing this, we're doing that. So what the gopis do? They left their husbands, they left their fathers, they left their sons, and they went out and they served. And because of that, they just gave up all social responsibility and went and they served. They helped. Gopi Bharta Kamalayor, Das Anu Das Anu Das. So we're servant of the servant of the servant. So yes, we do. We depend on Krishna. As Krishna says, Sarvadharman Parityajya. Give up all varieties of religion, just surrender to me. I will give you protection, do not fear. But it doesn't mean then that when we do reach that stage, that then we turn Krishna into our servant and he becomes our order supplier. That whatever I want, well, I'm here, Krishna, so I'm surrendered, so give me. I want to win the lottery, so give me the millions. That's what I need right now. It may be for us, it may not be for us. Are we prepared to use our lottery money in the service of Krishna? Then Krishna will give. That's a different story. But yes, surrender and understand that everything is being done by Krishna anyway. We're just under the illusion that we are the doer. We're not the doer. Prabhupada used to quote that old English saying many times that man proposes, God disposes. So just like Arjuna, he wanted to do his thing, and Krishna told him, no, that may be pious. That may appear like the right thing to do from a pious perspective, from the point of view of a holy man, but you're not a holy man. You're not a mendicant. You're not a Brahmin, you're a warrior. So get out and do your duty. So that was the main proposition from Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And then finally, even after so many arguments and debates and everything in Bhagavad Gita, which is there for all of us to read, Arjuna, what did Arjuna finally say? Okay, I'm a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So, yes, that's a very, very good question. Yes, surrender to Krishna, depend on Krishna, but depend on Krishna for what? Depend on Krishna to help me carry out my service to Krishna. So as I will beg Krishna, please give me a facility to serve you more and more and more. That's depending on Krishna. And then he will remove all the obstacles on the path. But ultimately, it requires service, it requires seva. And when we have that mentality, everything falls into place. What did Prabhupada have when he arrived in Boston Harbor? He sold a set of books to the captain of the ship, of the steamship, Captain Pandya, for $20, $15, and the captain gave him 20 and told him keep the 5. He started off with $20. That was it. He had nothing else. But he was surrendered. He was surrendered to the order of the spiritual master. When was he given that order? 1922. When did he fulfill that order? 1966. 44 years of struggling, of overcoming obstacles, of getting around this obstacle and that obstacle. and being gored by a bull and being, creating so many problems from the bureaucracy and so many problems from the Gaudiya Math and so many problems from his godbrothers trying to stop him. So many problems in so many ways, his family, everywhere there were problems. 44 years later, Prabhupada started ISKCON movement after being given the order. But he said, I was never alone. There was not a second when my spiritual master was not with me, guiding me. And he has sent all you nice boys and girls to help me fulfill his mission. So I consider myself to be your servant. I consider myself to be your servant. This is Prabhupada speaking about his disciples. So service, that is the ultimate. That is the ultimate. Yes, depend on Krishna. Prabhupada was completely dependent on Krishna. He had nothing. From a material point of view, he just had the clothes on his back. Why am I talking to you now? Why do I know anything about this philosophy? Why have I ever heard of Bhagavad Gita? Because of that surrender of Prabhupada to Krishna's will. That's the ultimate surrender. Surrender to Krishna's will. And when that happens, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You can conquer the universe. Literally conquer the universe. It was Dhruva Maharaj went to the spiritual world in the self-same body. That's why we have Dhruva Loka, the Lord Star. It's part of the material world, part of the spiritual world. He has his own planet, almost his own tattva. Ajamil the same. Swan aeroplane just came, took him away, stepped on the Swan aeroplane. You can go to the spiritual world in the self-same body, but it requires surrender. Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Just give up all the stuff, all the thoughts. Very nice question, and it's something that needs a lot of study and a lot of deliberation. Yeah, how much do we depend on Krishna? How much of it is us? It's all Krishna, whether we think we're the doer or not. As soon as we think we're the doer, it's gone. It's gone. Because everything we do with whatever facility we have now, it all came from Krishna. It all comes from Krishna. It always will come from Krishna. So we're completely dependent on him. The difference is that it's within us the realization, yes, without Krishna, I am nothing. And because Krishna has blessed me, I have this facility to enable me to fulfill my desire of ultimately serving him. And then that reciprocates. Then he serves you. And then you serve him. Just like with the gopis. What did Krishna say to the gopis? I can never repay you. It's impossible. Sudama Brahman, the same thing. What did he give Krishna? Broken rice. Broken rice. And Krishna's eating. The goddess of fortune had to stop Krishna. Stop, stop, stop. Don't eat anymore. We even millions of universes, we won't be able to pay this Brahman back. If you eat another grain, broken rice. So where did the broken rice come from? That came from Krishna. It's like offering water to the Ganga. The water comes from the Ganga. We're offering to the Ganga. So everything is coming from Krishna. But we get the realization, sometimes it dawns on us, oh, isn't this wonderful? Krishna has given me this facility to be able to serve him. And then we go back and we serve him. And then he comes back and he serves us. Just like he did with the gopis. I can never repay you. It's impossible. Please, what did Krishna say ultimately? Please accept your service as payment. That was the payment. The opportunity to be able to serve Krishna was the payment in itself. Very nice question. Yeah, we need to go as much as possible deeper and deeper and deeper at every moment in time, and just apparently so-called simple questions, they're the deepest ones, and they give us the most answer. But the answer doesn't come from people like me just shooting his mouth off. The answer comes from both of us reciprocating with each other and discussing it and churning it and gaining the knowledge from this ocean of devotion that we have. It's all there. It's there for all of us. So let's just dive in. Just jump in. Whether you can sink or swim, you'll find out when you jump in. So, Jai, thank you very much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much, Haribol. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for that wonderful question and such an elaborate, extensive answer. I think we should close this session now. Prashanatma Prabhu, are you able to close this session? Or Prahlad Prabhu? Prahlad Prabhu? Prashanatma Das Prabhu? Okay, maybe they have challenges. I can close the session. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful class. We always look forward to your class. You tell us so many Srila Prabhupada stories, and that enriches us and enlivens us, because Krishna is far away, but at least we know that Srila Prabhupada was in this century, and we read about him and we listen about him and seen pictures of him. So thank you for all the Amrit that you bestow on us. Just let us chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once in glorification of Vidura Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Jai.
Kalpatarubhyascha
Keep it sender baby cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo,
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavyo Namo
Namo.
Namah.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai. Hari Hari Bol. Jai.
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna.
ki, Jai.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night.
Hare Krishna.